Imagine a world where anger doesn't explode, where power doesn't crush, where silence in the face of hate is not weakness, but wisdom. Imagine a world where those who are wronged still choose to forgive, and those who suffer still choose to love. It's not a fantasy, it's a forgotten reality, one that once walked among us, one that echoed in deserts and cities, in whispers and in revelations. This isn't just history, it's a roadmap for the soul. This is not a speech about religion alone. This is about what it means to be truly human, about patience that outlasts pain, about mercy that disarms vengeance, about a man who could have ruled the world with force, but chose to lead it with compassion. If you've ever been broken, if you've ever stood at the edge of your own silence, if you've ever wondered how light survives in the darkest of places, then stay with me, because what you're about to hear isn't just a story from the past. It's the cure the modern world has forgotten. In the sacred rhythm of the Quran, where every word holds the weight of eternity, one command echoes across time. Be patient. Not as a passive resignation, but as an active, powerful state of being. Patience is mentioned over 70 times, not merely as advice for the weak-hearted, but as a divine instruction for the strongest souls. It is the mark of those closest to Allah, a quality so revered that its reward, as stated in the Quran, is without limit. In a world that constantly pushes for reaction, for retaliation, for immediate answers, Islam teaches a sacred pause. It tells the believer, wait, endure, trust. This isn't silence in the face of injustice, but a disciplined calm in the storm, a steady hand when the heart wants to tremble. The Quran doesn't just command patience in trial. It weaves Sabr into every facet of life. Patience in worship, patience in grief, patience in battle, patience in the face of insults, injury, and injustice. Every story of the prophets carries within it a lesson of Sabr. From the long trials of Prophet Ayub to the years of isolation and rejection endured by Prophet Nuh. It is through their steadfastness that divine help descended, as if to say, the greater the storm, the closer the dawn. The Quran elevates patience not as an emotional option, but as a moral obligation. It links Sabr with prayer, declaring, seek help through patience and prayer. Indeed, Allah is with the patient. That companionship with the divine, that invisible nearness in moments of struggle, becomes the fuel that keeps the heart alive in the darkest hours. In Islam, patience is not numbness or stagnation. It's movement without haste, strength without rage, faith without visible proof. The believer who embodies Sabr does not simply endure time. They rise through it, refined, protected, and seen by the one who witnesses all things. Sabr becomes a mirror reflecting one's trust in the unseen, a spiritual armor in a chaotic world. And through that lens, every delay is not denial, every hardship is not punishment, and every silence is not neglect. Divine preparation through divine command. Before the Quran speaks of law, history, or commands, it speaks of mercy. The very first words revealed, Bismillahir-Rahman-ir-Rahim, invoke two names of Allah that carry the essence of compassion, Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim. These are not random titles. They are chosen identifiers, repeated at the beginning of 113 chapters of the Quran, as if to remind humanity again and again that before anything else, God is mercy. This mercy is not limited, not conditional, not partial. It is vast, flowing, and all-encompassing. The Prophet Muhammad described it as so immense that Allah divided his mercy into 100 parts, sending just one to the earth and reserving the remaining 99 for the day of judgment. That one portion is enough to make a mother shield her child in battle, to bring rain to the earth, to cause the heart to forgive even when it aches. This divine mercy is not just an emotion. It is a principle that shapes the universe. Every act of creation, every delay in punishment, every open door for repentance is mercy in action. And Allah commands believers not just to believe in this mercy, but to reflect it, to be merciful to those on earth, so that the one above will be merciful to them. The Quran reveals a powerful truth. Those who do not show mercy will not receive it. So mercy is not a luxury of the pious, it is the oxygen of the faithful. When Allah describes his relationship with the Prophet Muhammad, he says, "And we have not sent you except as a mercy to all the worlds." That includes the oppressed and the oppressor, the sinner and the saint, the believer and the disbeliever. Mercy doesn't choose sides, it invites all. In a world fueled by judgment, Allah introduces himself as one who constantly forgives, who loves to pardon, who delays punishment even when it is deserved, who responds to a whisper of repentance with oceans of forgiveness. His mercy precedes his wrath, not just in speech, but in the way this world unfolds. It is a force more powerful than punishment, more healing than justice, more lasting than fear. In understanding Allah's mercy, we are invited to reframe our own lives, not around vengeance or hardness, but around softness, kindness, and boundless hope. In the vast landscape of human history, very few lives have been documented in such depth, not just in deeds, but in moments of silence, in tears, in smiles held back, in kindness returned for cruelty. The Prophet Muhammad lived patience and mercy not as slogans, but as breath. From the earliest days of his mission, he endured ridicule, stones, betrayal, and heartbreak, not with bitterness, but with a calm strength rooted in divine trust. When he stood in Taif, bloodied and rejected, and was offered the chance to bring destruction upon its people, he chose instead to pray for their guidance. That moment wasn't weakness. It was prophetic strength at its highest. It was the patience of a heart that knew justice, but chose compassion. He didn't retaliate out of ego. He waited out of love. His was a mercy that wasn't just selective for the believers, but one that extended to animals, to enemies, to strangers, to sinners, and even to those who plotted against him. When a woman who used to throw garbage on him fell ill, he visited her. When the people of Makkah, who had exiled him and killed his companions, were finally at his mercy, he stood before them victorious and said, "Go, for you are no revenge, just release, just mercy." This wasn't politics, it was prophetic character. It was the essence of Quranic teachings made flesh, walking through the alleys of Arabia. His patience wasn't passive, it moved mountains. His mercy wasn't weakness, it reshaped hearts. The companions who stood closest to him were transformed by it. And generations later, even his enemies acknowledged it. In moments when anger would have been justified, he chose grace. In situations where he had the upper hand, he reached out instead of striking down. His life was proof that patience does not mean surrender, and mercy does not mean softness. They are strength in their highest forms. In his legacy, Muslims find not just a leader or a reformer, but a mirror reflecting the divine values they are called to live by. To follow him is not just to honor his memory, but to live as he lived, with dignity, endurance, and a heart wide enough to carry the weight of humanity's flaws without breaking. He was the wizard of French people, and none of them was greater than he. Now, he had some problems with the wizard weight of his race. To follow him is to find the greatest gift, the greatest gift, the greatest gift, the greatest gift so many times. And he had such a fierce a desire to be accepted, to fit in, and to have excellent costumes. Patience is not merely waiting, it is how one waits. In Islam, it is a silent strength, a hidden pillar holding up the soul when the world seems too heavy to carry. Every believer faces tests, some large, like the loss of a loved one, others small, like an insult, a delay, a dream that takes too long to come true. In these everyday moments, patience becomes the training ground of the heart. It teaches the believer to remain steady, not because everything is perfect, but because faith whispers that the storm will pass. The prophet once described patience as illumination, a light that doesn't always show the way forward, but glows from within, keeping the believer from falling into darkness. It is not passive, it is action wrapped in calm, a mother staying kind while exhausted, a man holding his tongue in an argument, a youth turning away from temptation. These are not small acts, they are mountains moved in silence. Patience redefines strength. It is not found in those who shout the loudest or strike the hardest, but in those who endure with grace. When a believer exercises patience, they do not suppress emotion, they elevate it. They rise above frustration, above the pull of ego, and into the space where reliance on Allah begins. It is in patience that a Muslim begins to trust that delay is not denial, that hardship carries purpose, and that Allah is nearer than the breath they take to hold back their tears. The Quran speaks often of those who are patient, not just in calamity, but in obedience, because sometimes remaining consistent in prayer, refraining from sin, and staying hopeful in uncertainty are the greatest tests of all. Patience is not limited to pain. It is also needed in prosperity when arrogance could rise. It shapes character like water shapes stone, gently, persistently, beautifully. It is the mark of someone who does not let external chaos shake their inner world. In Islam, patience is not just a virtue, it is a form of worship, a silent prayer lived moment by moment. In Islam, patience is not just a virtue, it is a form of worship, a silent prayer lived moment by moment. When unemployment takes off, patience is not just a virtue, it is a form of worship, a silent prayer lived moment by moment. Maniamat, Shalem. Patience is not just a virtue, it is a form of worship. Through it, the believer's heart becomes a sanctuary of peace, steady even when the world is not, faithful even when results are unseen, and grateful even when life gives no answers. The Quran opens with the words, "In the name of Allah, the most merciful, the most compassionate," a declaration that sets the tone for everything that follows. Mercy is not an occasional act in Islam. It is the core. It flows through the verses like a river, nourishing the hearts that pause to drink from it. The Quran adds that it is the river that most merciful, the most compassionate, a declaration that sets the tone for everything, that pause to drink from it. The Quran adds that it is the river that most merciful, the most compassionate. The first law of Muhammad, to give and to receive. The word Quran in French is the word to. This mercy is not reserved for the deserving, not limited by faith or race or even righteousness. It is universal. The Quran speaks of Allah's mercy encompassing all things, reaching even those who deny Him. Rain falls on believer and disbeliever alike. The sun rises for the grateful and the ungrateful. This is not just kindness, it is a divine design, meant to teach humanity what true mercy looks like. Throughout the Quran, mercy is paired with justice, not in opposition to it. It tempers punishment, invites repentance, and opens the doors of forgiveness wider than the gates of wrath. It calls to those who have strayed and whispers hope to those who have fallen. The stories of the prophets are stories of mercy in motion. Noah called his people for centuries before the flood. Moses stood before Pharaoh not with a sword, but with a message of compassion. Jonah was forgiven after fleeing. Even those who opposed the truth were given chance after chance, because the Quran's message is not to crush the sinner, but to reclaim the soul. Mercy in the Quran is not weakness, it is the highest form of strength. It is Allah's attribute repeated more than any other, and it is the trait He most loves in His servants. The Quran urges believers to be merciful to one another, to their families, their neighbors, the orphan, the widow, the traveler, the enemy. It reshapes how power is understood, not as the ability to dominate, but the courage to forgive. Even in laws of retribution, mercy is encouraged over punishment, reconciliation over revenge. The Quran trains the heart to soften when the world teaches it to harden. It reminds humanity that mercy is not just a feeling, it is a way of life. To live Quranic mercy is to carry divine light in human form, to act in moments when one could turn away, and to choose compassion even when it is not earned. From the earliest days of his prophethood, the life of Muhammad became a living canvas, painted with patience and mercy. He walked through trials that would break ordinary men, yet he bore each wound with grace and each insult with silence, choosing dignity over vengeance. When he stood alone in Mecca, ridiculed by his people, called names, followed by mocking crowds, his response was not bitterness, but prayer for their guidance. Stones were thrown at him in Taif, and his body bled. But when offered divine retaliation, he declined, hoping their children would believe one day. That was not weakness, that was strength, drawn from the well of mercy. In Medina, when power shifted into his hands, he did not settle old scores. He forgave. The people of Mecca, who had driven him out, who had plotted against his life, who had spilled the blood of his companions, were met not with a sword, but with the words, "You are free." It was the kind of mercy that humbles even the proudest hearts. In his home, he never raised his voice. With his family, he was gentle. With the poor, he sat on the ground. With children, he smiled and played. With enemies taken captive, he treated them with such dignity that many embraced the very faith they fought. And still, even in battle, he forbade cruelty. Trees were not to be cut, the old were not to be harmed, and children were never to be touched. His patience wasn't only public, it was private. He was not proud. He spent nights in prayer, rising before dawn, his tears soaking the earth while his people slept. He never rushed the divine decree, never questioned the delay, always trusting the wisdom behind every moment. He taught his followers that strength lies not in the power to harm, but in the ability to forgive, to wait, to hope. In times of famine, he tightened his belt and went hungry. In times of ease, he gave more than he kept. His life was a journey of restraint in adversity and compassion in power. Every moment of his mission revealed how patience softens the hardest realities and mercy transforms the most broken souls. In him, patience and mercy weren't ideals, they were habits, lived with unwavering consistency. He showed the world that to truly follow divine guidance is to walk gently, speak kindly, and rise above anger with the elegance of a heart anchored in love. In a world rushing toward chaos, where tempers rise faster than understanding and cruelty often speaks louder than compassion, the message of Islam remains steady, unmoved by the storms of time. At its heart are two timeless virtues, patience and mercy, not merely as moral options, but as divine commands, sacred tools to mend broken spirits and heal divided hearts. The Quran teaches them, the Prophet Muhammad lived them, and through them, we are reminded that greatness isn't built in moments of power, but in the choices we make when power is in our hands. To be patient is not to be passive. To be merciful is not to be weak. These are the qualities that raise human beings to the level of angels. They are the bridge between us and the divine. In every moment we hold back when anger rises. In every instance we forgive when it hurts most. We echo the very essence of what Islam calls us to be. Today, more than ever, the world doesn't just need technology or progress. It needs hearts that beat with mercy and souls that breathe patience. It needs people who can stand firm without raising their fists, who can heal without harming, and who can love even when they are not loved in return. This is not just the message of a religion, it is the light of a way of life. Thank you for listening. May your journey be filled with peace, your heart guided by mercy, and your soul strengthened by patience. Good luck, and never forget, the strongest hearts are the ones that remain soft.